Welcome to Musical Miles Podcast, where we chase songs across state lines and dive deep into the stories behind the music. From legendary songwriters to rising stars, from backroad honky-tonks to festival stages, we bring you the voices, venues, and the fans that keep live music alive. We're Byron and Shanda, and we're on a mission to capture the heart of American music, 1 mile at a time. Let's hit the road. All right. Hey, music lovers, welcome to Musical Miles Podcast. I'm your host, Byron Duffin, and we are here in Elko, Nevada, and I'm with Mr. Brenn Hill.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the time. This is such a cool deal. So we're at the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Elko, and we're at the convention center. But Brenn is one of the artists playing and participating here, and we were just talking. Been coming for 35 years?
Off and on for, I was trying to figure that out. I think 34 years is what I've been, off and on here. I came as a spectator. You know, my parents dragged me out here because I was writing cowboy songs and cowboy poems and cowboy short stories and stuff, and they didn't know what to do with me. So, yeah.
Well, you're from Hooper, Utah, not Hooper. Hooper.
Yeah, Hooper, yeah.
Yeah. I have two boys that live in Ogden. So,
oh, okay.
So
yeah.
They clue us in on how to say those towns and that little stuff around there. You got that Utah lingo that kind of goes on down there.
Yeah.
So I have a really good friend of mine that I work with. I spent 13 years in the cowboy rope business, and buddy of mine that I worked with by the name of Rex Anderson is from out in the Uinta Basin.
Okay.
And boy, that's like almost their own little language out there.
Yeah.
They're almost Okies.
Yeah, well, you know, they get, that's ranch and rodeo and oil, roughneck. Ranch, rodeo, and roughnecks out there. I got buddies out there, you know, that they grew up on the ranch and they went into the oil biz, you know.
Right.
And so now that's why your horses cost $50,000.
Yeah, because, and the oil business is good in Texas, and there's a lot of good horses come out of Texas. Yeah. Well, let's talk about Brenn Hill. So you're from Hooper, Utah. Been a cowboy poet, singer, songwriter for your whole adult life and most of your adolescence.
Yeah. I'm 48. I was starting to write cowboy poems and cowboy songs when I was, you know, in my early teens.
Okay.
So I don't really remember not doing it.
Right.
And, I just feel grateful to still be a part of this thing, you know.
Well, you're fast becoming one of the old timers here, my friend.
Yeah, that happens faster every year.
Well, I am an old timer. I got you by a few years. You're 48?
48, yeah.
48, yeah. I'm 64. So got a little, we got to meet and visit with Wiley earlier today. And Wiley and I are just 4 months apart in age.
Oh, wow.
And
I'll
so
be darned,
we are old timers, and we shared a lot of good stories. And our paths have crossed. We'd never met, but our paths have crossed. I rode cutters. He rode cutters. Team roped. I used to announce a lot of ropings, U.S. ropings. In fact, one of the stories that made the connection with you, and we're going to talk about that, but your song, Monster on Your Back, is about an old cowboy from down there in your neck of the woods, right?
Yeah, from Huntsville. His name is Bill Hadlock.
Bill Hadlock. So, is that Lawson's dad?
Lawson's father. Yeah, Lawson's in the Hall of Fame, and
So I rode cutters. I knew those guys, and then but he's also related to Jordan Tibbetts, which is Jordan Bowen, right?
Yeah.
So that's her grandpa, wasn't it?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So they're all So Jordan's husband, Ben, and I have been friends a long time. He used to announce some ropings and work with Ben and Jordan. Actually, we were at Ben and Jordan's wedding, and then another cousin, Miss London Owens, who's played with you some.
Yeah.
I got to meet her and interview her last summer.
Oh, wow.
And so just briefly met her at the Rocky Mountain Boot Stock down in Ogden, or not Ogden, in Provo, Orem. Yeah. So
I've been hanging out with they're family.
Yeah.
They're just like an extension of family. My dad and my uncle would tell me stories of Bill Hadlock, and, you know, he was always a larger-than-life character. And my older brothers grew up with the Hadlocks, with Lawson and his older brothers, and rode with them when they were growing up and high school rodeo and stuff. So they were just all larger than life characters to me, and to some degree they still are. They're
Sure.
just, there's so much horse talent in that family that you just kind of think, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're very talented. Lawson's boy,
Paige is the daughter. And, I'll think of it. Hold on one second. Yeah,
I remember that kid when he was little. When Lawson,
Dax.
Dax.
Yeah,
and he's married to an Idaho girl, and he lives down out in Oakley, Idaho.
in Oakley.
Yeah. Married to a Zollinger, right? Is that right?
I believe so. I saw them. His mother's living up there with him.
Okay.
Yeah, she'd had some health problems, and Heidi, Hadlock. That
Right.
she was married to Lawson. That's Dax and Paige's mother.
Right.
Is a dear friend, and she's up there. She'd had some health problems, and she actually, her mother worked for my dad for a long time. So yeah, that's just family.
Well,
up there.
it's funny in this world, and I don't care. I tell people all the time, I know somebody that knows somebody that killed somebody.
Yeah.
And so it'll take me about 5 minutes to connect the dots, but it doesn't take us very long. You and I had never met, but before last night, ran into you at the Star.
Yeah.
You were there with Andy and Murph, and how cool was that? That was. We got to visit with Murph for just a slim second. He said he's going to come by, and we're hoping to get to sit down with him. But my schedule is, as you well know, is all flip-flopped and screwed up. I got everybody stacked in here.
Oh, you got a full schedule, yeah, and we appreciate it. As we stood there in the Star last night, Waddy walked in, and
and Waddy was there, yeah,
and Hedges and Murph was there, and just a lot of time thinking here at the 40, a lot of lamenting here. With the 40th over what this event has meant to me in my life and so many others, and the opportunities it's presented for me. My son is a cancer survivor, and he was 2.5 diagnosed with cancer, and I, was sitting there at the foot of his bed at Primary Children's Hospital in Salt Lake City, thinking that I was probably going to have to hang up the music thing and do something honest for a living, because it was a rough stretch. And
I can imagine.
Murph called me on my cell phone and said, "Hey, help's on the way, brother. We're going to come, me and Waddy are going to come over there and do a benefit for Briggs, for my son." And Ian Tyson did one here.
I remember. In fact, Stamey was involved, and Stamey, I interviewed him this morning, and we talked about that very thing and about Briggs and his deal. And he survived. He's
18 now, and
18.
He went on a buffalo hunt last month, and he lives to hunt, man.
Oh,
He's just
that's so cool.
Yeah, but to have this family sort of rally around me and my family, it endears you pretty close.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is one. It's the kind of the cowboy way, right? I mean, it's our culture. They have a tendency to rally around each other and support. Yeah. Whether it's the music, and the music is very, very, and I see that in the music world. We were just talking with Kristen about an event. We were in Texas in September, and there were two big fundraiser deals going on in Fort Worth in the stockyards, plus Red Steagle's cowboy deal was going on at the same time.
Yeah.
But they had a deal, fundraiser for Sonny Alvarez, who was a big music guy there in Texas. I never got to know Sonny, but they were, and the support, they had that at Billy Bob's, and then they had the Cloud Covered Sunday, which is the program that they have in down there for the homeless. They have portable showers, washing machines. They give the guys haircuts. It's a cool deal. They raised $110,000 that day, and this is all music driven, right?
Man.
These are all musicians who donated their time to support Sonny and his family and to support Cloud Covered Sunday. And I don't know how much money they raised. I'll bet you they raised $250,000 that day.
Yeah.
In the stockyards.
Yeah, music is so powerful. It speaks to the soul,
Yes.
and it can motivate people to give freely of what they have to help other people. And I think that's when we're at our best. Is really when we're coming together to help people. And the thing about that is you just never think it's going to be you, because I was here at Larry McWhorter's event. We did a number of years ago, one for Joel Nelson, and then all of a sudden, here I am. I'm the one in the mess. But yeah, in kind, they rallied around me.
Yeah. Well, once again, I think it's
who we are.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about your music. You've been at this a long time, like we said. You've got some great songs. That Monster on Your Back. Let's tell a little bit more. We talked about that. Kind of who inspired you. Kind of tell the story. I love the backstories.
Yeah, I in the first recession, I'm a songwriter that's lived through 2 recessions.
Okay.
So on the first one, my wife, I was a very smart guy, married a working gal. She was in the mortgage industry.
Okay.
And so the mortgage industry and all the gigs sort of tanked in 2007,
Okay.
And in the summer of 2007, I had more time on my hands, so I went and rode with Bill Hadlock up at the Barbie. He'd managed the Barbie at that point for 50 years. Said it's the only job he'd ever had. He'd only had one job interview, and he worked 50 years on a handshake deal. And so anyway, Bill and I rode out. And I have to say, going up there, I was riding a young horse, and, I wasn't really sure exactly how in the world I was going to get my family through that mess. So I just thought, I'm going to go cowboy and, and do some stuff that I want to do, and just dig deep here. And so we're riding out up Gertson Canyon that morning, and Bill was riding this big old kind of long-legged bay horse that those Hadlocks like. I mean, they always had the best horse flesh you've ever seen. And I said, gee, Bill, that's beautiful bay colt you're riding. He said, yeah, he's coming along really well, but he thinks there's a monster around every tree. And one of these days, you got to learn the monster's on his back.
Wow.
And we went up Gertson that day, got under a stand of Quakies, gathered some cows, and Lex, his son, was with us. And we watched a lightning storm roll in up there on the flat mountain, and, got a Hadlock on the left, me and the Hadlock on the right. We're on the tallest flat mountain in northern Utah, and this lightning storm's coming in, and they're just watching cows, like, I thought, well,
you're a little cagey.
Yeah, and anyway, we pulled up under a stand of Quaky trees, and I asked Bill that day, I said, hey, if you had it to do all over again, what would you do different? And he said, not a thing. He said, I got buddies I went to high school with that have made millions and millions of dollars, and they haven't had half the life I've had. He says, I'd be a cowboy again if I could do it again. Yeah. And by the time I got to the bottom of that hill, man, I had that song pretty well written. I sat down with the guitar and fleshed it out, and when I got home that night, and that song, I had no idea how it would change, the trajectory of my career and my life. It kind of saved us when my son was coming out of a surgery that, had him right side paralyzed and unable to communicate. I would play that song at his bedside, and he would smile at me, and so it's a powerful song for so many reasons, and even still today, here we are, umpteen years later, and it's still the highest streamer.
Oh, without a doubt. I listened to it again this morning and looked at the streaming count, and that's what matters, right? Because obviously you guys sell some albums. It was interesting, Stamey. We talked about that this morning. He's released a new album, right, in December, and he said he ran 1,000 CDs, and I'm like, who owns a CD player, Dave? And he said, my fans do.
Yeah.
And which is great. But most people don't realize the music deal, and we've learned a lot. We've only been doing this podcast since mid-July.
Wow.
And learned a lot about the music business in that people don't realize how many streams it takes to generate $1.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. It's 0.0032 cents on Spotify, right?
Yep.
So it takes, I wanted to say, 200,000 streams to make $1,000.
Yeah.
And so it's it just takes a lot of streams, and it takes a lot. And so we encourage people, look, go to your shows, buy the tickets, put $20 in the tip jar, go to the merch table, and buy the CDs and buy the stickers and buy the T-shirts. I don't know if you sell that stuff. A lot of the artists, do, but not everybody does. But that's how you put fuel in the truck to go to the next one, right? Or
and what we do with streaming revenue, at least what I do, is I fuel the recording.
Okay.
And that's, I take my recording budgets basically out of what revenue the streaming generates.
Yeah.
And and our royalties. I feel fortunate that I'm a songwriter that has managed to maintain a lot of ownership of my own stuff.
Right.
People who are listening may not quite understand that.
Yeah.
But that other 100% that they call publishing, that is 50 cents out of every dollar.
Right.
A lot of artists through their career, they will use that as bartering, or give somebody sweat equity, a manager or an agent, or most record labels, when they front the money for a new record,
you don't see that pub money.
They want their publishing.
Want that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of artists go in early in their careers and they sign publishing deals, and they sign a lot of that away. I mean, they spend a lot of time writing those songs, and I don't understand it. I really truly don't. But we've been fortunate to interview some really talented Nashville songwriters that have had some #1 hits on radio that have made them a lot of money.
Yeah.
And been very successful. And so but those days are different. It's way different today than it was 20 years ago or even 10 years ago.
Very different, yeah. The mechanical royalty aspect is what we lost for such a long time, because mechanical royalties were paid based on how many units pressed.
Right.
And that went directly to a songwriter. And so we lost that for a time. There is a mechanical licensing collective that is making some deals with, and some of them have to happen in the courtroom, unfortunately, but making some deals with the streaming services to pay those mechanical royalties, and it's helping. But yeah, I tell people, if you don't want to get on the road and you don't want to live that lifestyle and play live and grind it out, and it's not for you, because you have to make a living on gigs.
Well, you have to, because even those guys, and once again, so episode we posted last Friday, Bryce Long. Bryce is has had #1 hits with Gary Allan and with John Party, and I mean, he's had 140 cuts, right?
Yeah.
But those guys still do 60 to 70 shows a year,
yeah.
And they do a lot of songwriter festivals, which are a lot smaller. This to me is very comparative to a songwriter festival. This is even bigger than a songwriter festival, because we've only been to a handful, but you go to a songwriter festival, there's 200 people there,
yeah,
and you're getting to hear the whole backstory, why you wrote that song, the story, like you've got Monster on your back, right?
Yeah.
So, well, let's talk another one of the songs that I really liked, that was really interesting to me, and there's got to be a backstory to it, the Ballad of Ed Cantrell.
Yeah, that took me a long time to write that song. I was at a Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Cedar City, Utah, and an old trapper, Wyoming state trapper, and an artist that had cowboyed all over Wyoming, and both those guys had kind of had their careers during the time that Ed Cantrell was serving at Sweetwater County. But they looked at me the same time. They said, "You got to write a song about Ed Cantrell." And I literally, it was almost one of those things where I don't think they meant to, but they both said the same thing.
Oh, really?
And so it hit me pretty hard. I set out to write that song, and when I wrote it, there wasn't a lot about it. Wasn't as many resources. There's an A&E story that you can find on YouTube, but essentially there was just so many different accounts of the way that went down, and he's a controversial guy. He had co-workers, guys that served with him in law enforcement that loved him, and he had the guys that didn't love him. And Jerry Spence defended him, and he was acquitted in the trial. Essentially, he shot his informant in the back seat of a squad car at Rock Springs outside of a bar called the Silver Dollar Saloon. Ed Cantrell was one of these guys that would just, from my side of the story and what I could gather really, is that he was a hardliner. He was going to hold the law, keep the drugs and the corruption out as much as he could. I-80 was an important artery across across the United States in the rise of cocaine and marijuana. And, you know, Cantrell was a Sweetwater County guy that was like, yeah, we're not going to have that.
We're not going to have that here.
And he was, you know, he's a martial arts expert and a quick draw champion. And so, yeah, definitely maybe a little bit paranoid that they were after him, and they may have been. And, you know, honestly, that story has had so many layers told to me through the years. It took me 8 years to finish that song.
Wow. So speaking of that, I mean, is this a very personal thing for you, or do you like to collaborate on your songwriting process, or both?
All of the above. You know, I'm just a songwriting junkie. Yeah. Okay. So I'll do whatever it takes to get the story told.
Okay.
You know, and it's a song by song case. You know, I had a lot of other songs that I started and finished during the time I was working on the Ballad of Ed Cantrell. But mostly what had to happen with that song for me to stamp it finished is for me to feel like I got to put this story out there, and I'm going to put it out in this form, and I know there's going to be people that don't love it, don't agree with it, but it is what it is.
Have you had some pushback?
I've had pushback, and I've had people. His neighbor came to me with tears in his eyes before a songwriting. We're going to do a songwriting seminar and a concert down in southern Utah one time, and the guy came to the concert. Before the concert, he had tears streaming down his face, and he says, Ed was the real deal, man. He said he held the law. And so I've had a lot of different reactions, and I knew I would have it, but it's the story that had to be told.
Yeah, well, that's cool. So how about Hell on Your Women?
Yeah, I pretty much lived that one. And some guys were across the canyon that morning. I think we come around the hill, and there was, the game warden thinks it was a grizzly bear that was above me, and all I could hear is rocks rolling, and I kind of heard, you know, pads on rocks, but the sun, it was right in the sunshine. I couldn't see anything. My horse was having a fit, and I just out of the corner of my eye saw her back foot go off of this little 2-foot trail we're on, and I you know, I bailed into. I didn't go with her. I bailed into the hill. And she tumbled down the mountain, and guys across the canyon thought I was on her, and so they called the fish cop. I was the only guy they could get a hold of, and anyway, I got her up, walked her out. But it was also that time when my wife was kind of like, hey, you know, I think as long as you're playing guitar for a living, you may want to hang up this cowboying thing a little bit. And so there was that battle going on. Yeah, I called my wife, and I'm like, yeah, you know, the buckskin's not in the greatest shape. I'm okay, you know. So, yeah, I kind of lived through that song.
Yeah.
Hell on your women, harder on your horses.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Nursed that horse through that.
Yeah, so she survived it?
Survived it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cortisone shots in her.
How many years ago
backbone.
was that?
That was 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Cool. Well, here's the other one that I just really adore and think is a great story, is that One Hand in the Riggin story.
Yeah, yeah. That's a story that if I hadn't have lived it, I'd be scratching my head, you know. I got to Nashville, had a manager there that was an old school music biz guy from Toronto. He had a couple of artists. His flagship artist was Michelle Wright, and she'd had some significant success. And he was like, man, you got to get down here and write some songs because there's money to be made here, and you can, you know, kind of fund your music or your cowboy music career with some hits, and you can do this, you know. And so he connects me with a fellow that named Bruce Boughton that was involved with the musicians union at the time. He was go-to A-list, what I call A-list, steel guitar player in the country music world. And Bruce was really a mentor. He kind of took me under his wing, took me around town, introduced me to people. And then finally, you know, I kept thinking, we're going to get to this songwriting deal one of these days, you know. And one night he says, we're going to go to my office. We're going to write a song. And he says, what are your ideas? He's driving his BMW. He says, tell me your song ideas. And I start going through my, they want punchlines. They want hooks, lyrical hooks. And I said, well, I got this rodeo thing, that is kind of cool. It's called One Hand in the Riggin. And he's like, yeah, I like rodeo, man. I like bronc riding. And he says, what are we going to do with that? And I just said, well, I don't know. We'd push it to LeDoux or something. And George Strait, maybe. I don't know. And he's like, I dig it. So we got into his office. We wrote the song in 20 minutes.
Oh, you're kidding.
I mean, it just fell on the paper, And so I had a channel to LeDoux, and I had demoed the song, and one of my mentors growing up was his keyboard player. When I was in high school and college, I would mow his lawn while he was on the road playing for Chris, so I could have studio time to demo songs.
Right.
And so anyway, I give the tape to Bobby, and he plays it for Chris. And one day he says, Chris is going to call you, so stay by your phone, And I'm driving the old ranch truck out of Ogden, Utah, hoping it doesn't die on me. And Chris calls me up, and he's like, man, I love that song. And he says, I want to do it. He says, but I think, maybe we do it as a duet or something. And I just thought, that'd be crazy, But yeah, absolutely. So anyway, we're in the middle of the story here, okay? He puts his vocal down at Bobby's studio. He used to come into the Hojo Motel in downtown in Salt Lake on Redwood Road.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
In those days, you might get shot there.
Yeah, that was sketchy.
Nowadays, you'll for sure get shot there.
Yeah.
So he's coming in there, and he just, because he didn't want to pay too much for room, that's where they'd take off from the tour bus. Bobby drives down to Salt Lake, picks him up. They go up. He records his vocal.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm in the middle of a record called Endangered, and we're thinking about putting the song on the record. A guy named Eddie Schwartz is producing it. Eddie's a songwriter. He wrote "Hit Me with Your Best Shot" for Pat Benatar, and a record label at the time is paying for that record. The whole top level of the record label gets laid off in the middle of that.
Oh, jeez.
So Eddie and my manager and I, but mostly those guys because I was young and broke, fund the rest of the record.
This is like 04, 03, 04?
03.
03, yeah, because he died in 04.
Yeah. So anyway, they had played a couple of singles off of this record for a indie promoter in Texas. The Texas music scene was just on the rise. Mm-hmm. The red dirt country thing. She's like, we got to get this single released. And Capitol wanted us to have Mac McAnally kind of mix that song and work on that song a little bit. And my manager at the time was like, we don't have the time and we don't have the money. It's not going to happen. I said, man, come on. This is a duet with my hero. Right. And he's like, we've got somebody hungry for this right now. This is a no-holds-barred story, by the way. The newspapers edit this out. You can do what you want. But I just said, man, I think that's a horrible idea. And unfortunately, it was their money. And, some of LeDoux's team was really upset about that. They should have been. So anyway, this decision comes as we're literally finishing the mixes on this record. And I told the engineer who's sitting there, I said, you make me a copy with Chris's vocal on it. I said, that is the last thing you're doing today. And I mean, I kind of had to, squeeze his shoulder and say, this is happening, brother. Right. He gives me a copy. It's off a format called Radar. Okay. Which was a transitionary format between the ADATs and the DA, the early digital stuff, and Pro Tools, which is what's used now. Okay. So nobody has these Radar machines around in here. But anyway, 20 years, that disc that he gave me sat in my safe.
Oh, my gosh.
And so we're here, and Ned, I'm emceeing a show with Ned and Stamey, and I think Hedges was on that, and this over in the Convention Center auditorium. And I'm watching Ned's set, and I mean, it's like a light came on in my head. Ned could do a duet with his dad on one hand in the riggin. And so Ned comes off the stage, and he's, wiping the sweat off his brow. I said, "Brother, we got to talk." He's like, "What's going on?" I said, "No, man, we got to talk." And so he puts his guitar away, he comes out, he's like, "What's up?" And I said, "Hey, I got a vocal track of your dad singing on one hand in the riggin. And I think maybe you want to think about doing that as a duet with him." And he was like, "Well, yeah." So that's how that came to be. And since it's been released, people say, "Hey, was that AI or all this stuff?" And it's like, no, it is not AI. That is Chris's vocal. It sat. So why didn't you tell us about it? I said, "Do you know what Chris LeDoux fan? These are wonderful people, but they're crazy people. They'd have been at my door saying, 'Give me that disc.'"
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, so we got to interview Ned in November in Pocatello, Idaho. And I was a Chris LeDoux fan from the time probably before you were born. When he was selling the tapes out of the back of his truck or his trunk of his car. And anyway, so when I saw Ned was coming to Pocatello, I said, I've got to reach out because we don't know who we're going to get to, what the response is going to be.
Yeah.
And I got a message back from his manager is
Mark
Seisel. And Mark reached out to me and he said, "Yeah, Ned would do it, but would you do an audio? Would you just do it over the phone?" And I'm like, "No." Yeah. We do everything in person, or we don't want to do it. Yeah. I just sorry, but I kind of set the ground rules when we did this. We call this musical miles for a reason. We'll drive a long ways to meet with an artist, and we've been tens of thousands of miles for live music. Our love is live music, so that's kind of, we're a little bit purist in that regard. I'm going to probably have to do some interviews over the phone at some point or over the internet, but anyway. So he came back and said, "Okay, we'll do it. We'll give you 30 minutes in Pocatello." And Ned was a little cool at first, but I made this. I wanted this all about Ned, not about Chris. Even though I'm a Chris fan, but I love Ned because he sounds and looks just like his dad, right? Yeah. So once we saw him, but I had no idea until I interviewed him that he never sang or played. He was never a front man. That was never his intention. Yeah. And he told me in that interview, he said, "I got a new single coming out. We're going to release it right before the NFR, the week of the NFR," and which was cool because we were going to be there. We were doing interviews down there, and I said, "Oh, great." Anyway, but he didn't tell me what it was. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember who shared that with me. Maybe it was just I saw his post on his social media that he was coming out with one hand in the ring. But he said it's a rodeo song. It's great. It's going to be perfect timing, the NFR. And what a cool song.
Oh, yeah. I've always believed in it. I always did. Yeah. I always believed in that song. Chancey Williams has a great version of that.
I got to interview him there as well in Vegas.
And it's the highest honor you can get as a songwriter is to have someone record your song and brand it theirs. Yeah. Put their heart and soul into it in such a way that it's coming from inside of them. Yeah.
I asked a songwriter, Bryce Long, who we just interviewed in October, but I said, "Does it bother you that, as a songwriter, that you made," because he had a deal, and so have you. You had record deals, but someone else cut your song, and you've recorded that song as well, right? Yeah. Yep. So, but to make, and he said, "No, that is the greatest honor to have someone else take your song and your music, and make it their own and be successful with it."
See, and I truly believe, Byron, that these songs come from God. Yeah. That they're actually gifts from God. They come through us, as His instruments, but they're meant to come and inspire people to hear them. Oh yeah. And God knows the channels to put them through so that the people that need them, that need to hear them, can benefit from them. Yeah. I know for a fact that there are guys that ride broncs for a living because of music, because of Chris LeDoux songs.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Well, those songs made us want to be cowboys. Right?
Made us want to be the real deal.
Yeah, and so I tell everybody. I've told everybody this today. I'm an Idaho farm boy that always wanted to be a cowboy. And so I was fortunate enough to grow up in a time in an area, and my dad was financially stable and well off as a successful farmer, that he made sure he wasn't a cowboy, but he knew how important it was that we were mounted. So we rode really, really good horses. He got us the very best help to teach us how to rope, to teach us how, I mean, D. Pickett's father-in-law taught me how to rope calves. I mean, Bob Johnson. And you know, I was fortunate to be in that situation. And then as I evolved and got to be a better horseman, and you know, I went to horseshoeing school, not to be a horseshoer, but to be a better horseman. And there were times I fed my family because I could shoe horses, you know, because times got tough. But no, it's, guys like Chris LeDoux inspired me. D. Pickett inspired me. There's a lot of guys that inspired me. Yeah. And we love music, you know, and so anyway.
Always felt like if I could be an artist that was part of you know, inspiring somebody to stay in this life, as hard as it is, to ranch, to cowboy, to rodeo, whatever it is, I've served my purpose in the world.
Well, I think you served it well. Well, listen, we appreciate you taking time. This is a busy weekend for everybody here, especially the artists. You know, everyone that we reached out to, you all came right back to us and said, "You bet, we'll participate." So
this is a good family.
Well, so couple of quick questions. Who would you love to collaborate with, dead or alive?
Oh, that's a tough. You know, even though he didn't collaborate much, Harley Allen.
Okay. Don't know the name.
Yeah, I would have loved to write with him. That's such a tough call. I would probably, you know, be tripping over myself to write with Don Schlitz.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, I mean, just to sit in the room with him for 15 minutes, I would love to write with him if that opportunity arose. I'd love to write with Clapton.
Oh yeah.
I think Clapton is, you know, his knowledge of imagery and phrasing, lyrical phrasing, and how that connects to a melodic structure, I think is probably as good as anybody that's ever lived, you know.
Yeah.
I would have loved to write with Gordon Lightfoot.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Neil Young, you know. I just have so many heroes. Obviously, you know, Ian Tyson is the guy that has inspired me the most to be a songwriter, and I just I wish I would have taken the time to zip up to Canada and write. That's one of the opportunities I regret the most. But yeah, this is a labor-intensive effort, you know.
Sure.
And there's not a lot of time in our lives.
Oh no, and you're raising a family, and you got, so Briggs is 18. How many other children do you have?
I got a 15-year-old daughter, Cambridge, and a 23-year-old son named Quaden.
Okay.
Fortunately, none of them are involved in music.
Oh wow, I don't know. They don't play at all, or sing, or even for fun?
You know, Briggs plays guitar and sings. Quaden and Cambridge play a little piano, and my daughter's a dancer.
Okay.
I think I got my oldest talked into having a career in the medical field, so he can.
Okay. Married? Is he married?
Not yet.
No kids, no grandkids.
He's got a girlfriend, and if he doesn't marry her, I'm gonna make him marry her. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fun. Do me a favor, play us a song on that Teton guitar.
Yeah.
There's the capo if you need it, or you decide whatever. Just kind of set it up. Tell us what you're going to play.
Got to play one hand in the riggin, man.
There you go.
I got bucked off out in Prescott. I've been driving half the night down a long and lonely highway. Seems there ain't no end in sight. Didn't make the short go, but if I make it to Cheyenne, there'll be another bronc to ride, and I just might have a chance if I keep one hand in the riggin', one hand on the wheel. No matter how far down the road I go, there is always one more rodeo. She'd like for me to settle down, but long as I'm still living, I keep one hand on the wheel, one hand in the riggin. What it is that keeps me going, sometimes I just don't know. 'Cause for the years I spend riding, I don't have much to show. While she waits all alone, hoping I come back to stay. But there's always one more mile to drive down another endless highway. And I keep one hand in the rigging, one hand on the wheel. No matter how far down the road I go, there's always one more rodeo. She'd like for me to settle down, but long as I'm still living, I keep one hand on the wheel, one hand in the rigging, one hand on the wheel, one hand in the rigging. Whoa. Yeah.
Thank you so very much.
God bless Chris and Ned LeDoux.
Yes, God bless them.
Yeah.
Put your John Henry on there for me, or actually your Brenn Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'll get there's a space.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so very much.
This has been great. Hey, for Musical Miles Podcast, I'm your host, Byron Delphin, here with Brenn Hill. We're at the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering in Elko, Nevada. We'll see you somewhere down the road. Adios for now.